Located about a 20-minute drive away from Niagara Falls, Ontario, right by the Queen Elizabeth Highway, lies a small limestone tunnel running under what was once known as the Grand Trunk Railway Lines, a railroad that runs through Niagara Falls connecting New York to Toronto. What was once known as a simple drainage tunnel is considered today as one of the most haunted tunnels in all of North America. The tunnel itself was constructed sometime in the early 1800s. It served as a drainage tunnel to remove water from the farmlands and was used as a safe passage for farmers to transport goods and animals underneath the busy railroad above. During that time, the area surrounding the tunnel was occupied by a small community of farmers, with most of the houses located on the south side of the tunnel. The legend of the Screaming Tunnel tells the tale of a young girl who died a gruesome death in the middle of the tunnel. There are many variations of the story, although they mostly swirl around one another, each one adding a bit more detail to the case. The first and most common version of the story talks about a fire that occurred at night in one of the farmhouses nearby. With everyone who lived there dying in the midst of the fire, a young girl was able to escape. Her clothing ablaze, she tried to seek the water that ran through the old drainage tunnel. Unfortunately, upon reaching the middle of the tunnel, she fell to the ground into the cold water, where she perished due to the severity of her injuries. Another version of the story talks about a distraught couple with an alcoholic father, an abused wife, and their daughter. After talks of divorce started to become more frequent and the wife claiming that she will get custody of their daughter, the father became more violent. One night, drunk and enraged, the father dragged his daughter out of her bed and brought her to the tunnel, where he burned her alive. On other accounts, it is believed that the tunnel is where a young girl was attacked by a drunkard who did unspeakable things to her, killing her in the process, and burning her body to destroy any and all evidence of what had happened. Although each version of the story is slightly different from the other, they all end with the girl's screams filling up the tunnel, leading to her being killed and her body burnt to ashes. Due to the horrible means of the girl's demise, it is believed that the tunnel hosts her spirit to this very day and will haunt anyone who dares to disturb her. More specifically, it is said that if someone lights a match in the middle of the tunnel at night, it will awaken the girl's spirit, reminding her of the brutal conditions of her death. A scream will be heard throughout the tunnel, followed by a gust of wind that will extinguish the flame. We decided to head over to the Screaming Tunnel ourselves and investigate the alleged haunting. Before conducting the nighttime investigation, we decided to head over to the Screaming Tunnel during the day to investigate the surrounding area and the tunnel itself.
So you can see the stream coming from the back of the tunnel inside of it, and yeah, there's a lot of water. Not a lot, a little bit of water everywhere. But yeah, another thing I've noticed, there's a lot of wooden sticks and matches. You can see that there was a lot of people that came here before and tried to do this experiment themselves. But from all the videos that I personally saw on YouTube and all over the internet, most of the people come here during the day. They don't come here at night. And the actual legend claims to come here exactly at midnight and light a match at midnight, not during the day.
On the road leading up to the tunnel, we stumbled across quite an interesting sight. Upon first seeing it, we didn't consider it to be noteworthy. However, just as soon as we passed it, we lost signals in all of our electronic devices, GPS and phones included, which made us turn back and take a closer look. What we saw was something known as a shoe tree, an old tree right on the side of the road, full of different types of shoes nailed to it. After doing a bit of research on the topic, we found out that shoe trees could be something quite meaningless, like people doing it for fun or teenagers messing around. On the other hand, to the natives of North America, attaching a pair of shoes to a tree brings good luck. It could also be a memorial for loved ones who have died, or even something much more sinister, like a serial killer demonstrating the count of those he killed by attaching their shoes to the tree. Whichever one of these theories applies to this particular tree, we'll leave it up to you to decide.
I think this is the exact middle of the tunnel. This is supposedly where you're supposed to do the challenge of lighting a match and hearing the scream. We're going to do that later. We're going to do it at night. See if we can find anything. But for now, let's head outside to the other side of the tunnel and see what's over there.
We then decided to head over to the south side of the tunnel and investigate the path that leads into the woods, in the effort of finding the place where the community of farmers used to live about a century ago.
There's a lot of empty space over there. Feels like it could have been a house there before. I'm not sure. We'll see if there's a way around.
What we found there was quite interesting.
I'm pretty sure this is exactly where the house from which the girl ran away from, the house that burned down. People say that it was here in this area. Maybe there, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it was over here since it's supposed to be very close to the tunnel. Anyways, let me go see what's over there.
The area that we were located in wasn't too far away from the tunnel. In fact, it was about 60 meters away from the tunnel's entrance. That was when we decided to follow a small path into the forest and discovered something that appears to be an old and destroyed treehouse.
What is that? What is that? But you do see that there's something on the I think we found the spot. Yeah, this does look like the remains of a treehouse. I think the house was either in that field that's behind over there, or it was literally right there in that empty spot. Yeah. But there's nothing there right now.
After finding the destroyed treehouse, we went back to the tunnel to check the electromagnetic field inside of it. For those who are unaware, it is possible to determine the presence of paranormal entities with an electromagnetic field detector, otherwise known as an EMF. If the EMF is low, it means the area is clear of anything paranormal. However, when it's high, it could mean that there are either power lines nearby, the area's polarity is messed up, or there's a presence of something supernatural. When we turned on our EMF in the middle of the tunnel, it showed us the reading of 0.41, which is lower than average. We then decided to check around the entire tunnel to see if the reading will change. However, it never went over 0.48. After that, we decided to leave the place and come back right around midnight for the nighttime investigation.
It's cold. It's really cold in here now. It was really warm in the morning and there was no breeze. Right now it's windy in here. It's totally different than from the daytime investigation. Oh, dude. Can you see if the camera picks that up?
Barely. Yeah, kind of, a little bit.
Jeez, that's how cold it is in here. And it's 20 degrees outside right now. 20 degrees.
This was quite a strange phenomenon to us because we recorded this video in August, with the temperature outside the tunnel being plus 20 degrees Celsius, while inside the tunnel it felt like it was close to zero, with strong winds filling up the entire tunnel. On the other hand, during the day, the temperature stayed the same both inside and outside the tunnel, and there was absolutely no wind at all.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of noise. A lot of bugs, a lot of other animals. You can pretty much hear so much stuff right now. There's so many sounds coming from the highway and from all around the place. You can't really tell what is a whisper, what is a voice.
Then it was time. We waited until it was 11:59 p.m. to light up the match exactly at midnight.
Okay, everything's recording. It's time. I doubt anything's gonna light up right now because it's so windy in here. Let's try. Can you see me well? It immediately goes off. Let's try one more time. I light up the matches right now. I'll pull out my EMF. Check out the electromagnetic field right away. Hold on. Did you hear voices? I hear voices. The light is stable. .047.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. Completely nothing. Let's try one last time. Actually, no. Let's try one more time with the light, and then we'll turn off the light because maybe the light is scaring it. Maybe the light isn't supposed to be here. So right now, let's just do it. One match.
With the light?
With the light. I'll face away from the wind. Okay, so far nothing.
Light off?
Yeah, let's try with the light off. Okay, one last time. No light. It's quiet. Nothing. Nothing at all.
Even without the light, the scream did not appear. Although before we finished our daytime investigation, we decided to light up a few matches inside the tunnel so that later we can compare our results with the nighttime investigation. The main difference was that during the day, the matches never went off by themselves as there was absolutely no wind inside the tunnel, while at night, every match we lit always went off pretty quickly because of the strong winds that were present in the tunnel. Even though the scream did not appear, the massive temperature drop inside the tunnel at night still felt quite strange. But now, it was time to debunk this myth. Even after conducting the investigation, we were not satisfied with the results and wanted to know a bit more about the backstory of this chilling legend and why it came to life. There were many different stories posted online explaining what really happened at the Screaming Tunnel and why it was named that way, but there was one particular article that caught our attention. The article was written by cannibal Cam Schwartz about 3 years ago and was published by the Sound STC. The article obviously covers the legend of the Screaming Tunnel, but more importantly, the author claims to have found and got in contact with the descendants of those that lived by the tunnel around the same time when the alleged incident that triggered the legend happened. Recently, we were able to track down some descendants living around the tunnel. We wanted to know what really did happen, or if anything actually did. Phil and myself finally got in contact with Sam, son of Donald, who actually had a major part in the urban legend himself. This piqued our interest, and we were ready to get the real story behind this worldwide known phenomenon. Sam brought us down to the tunnel to talk about the picture he had. He had actual documentation of the accident or incident that occurred. This totally blew our minds. Was this event at all real or possible? He began to tell us about the picture of the mangled pile of bodies which lay in the middle of the tunnel. The year was 1924. Donald Jordanson lived across from the tunnels on 16 acres of land where he farmed wheat and corn. He had a whole life ahead of him. He was newly married and had a newborn son, Sam. How could life be any better? Well, it started with a level of drought that brought on the worst year of Donald's life. Southern Ontario had some of the worst weather that summer. In August of 1924, a storm blew in, with winds as high as 90 to 120 kilometers an hour through the area. It wiped out all of his crops that year. It was devastating in every way, especially financially. By the end of 1924, Donald had lost everything: the farm, the house, and his lovely family. Mrs. Donaldson took Sam never to return. Donald slowly lost it, and fell into what one would call massive psychosis: what is real and what is fantasy. Donald got to a point where everything that was living he felt should be dead. Everything that had a functioning part of society in some way or another should be dead. He felt that he should be dead. No one could get a hold of him. He was nowhere to be found. Doors were locked. The city was closing in on his property since there was no answer of any kind from him or even from his wife. Soon after, others disappeared. Where did the lawyer Frank Mail, neighbors Ethel Davison, and longtime business partner John Frew disappear? Finally, the police became involved to get to the bottom of it all. The day the police went to the Jordanson farm was the day all hell broke loose. As they approached the tunnel on the right-hand side, they began to notice a glow emanating from the tunnel. As they drove closer, they realized that there was at least a dozen bodies piled on each other, set ablaze. Black smoke began to billow from each end of the tunnel, and the stench was impossible to take. Standing at the other end of the tunnel was Donald. With a pitchfork tucked gently under his chin, he yelled out incoherently at the pile of burning bodies. He then began to fall forward, and he impaled himself through the head. So until this day, when you light a match in the tunnel, you can hear the ghostly voice of Donald before his ultimate decision. After reading this article, we were certain that we found our conclusion and the real story behind the Screaming Tunnel. With in-depth analysis and a long, detailed explanation, it seemed pretty legitimate. Unfortunately for the article, but fortunately for us, people were allowed to comment on it, expressing their thoughts and opinions. The comments reveal a completely different story, with actual people who lived in that area commenting and telling their own story. With every one of them saying that the article is completely made up, one thing was always true in all of their stories. A farmhouse did burn down not too far from the tunnel, and it is unsure whether or not the 2 kids that lived there survived. In order to verify the validity of this article, we decided to do some digging. The article mentions the names of a few victims, even providing their death records. Unfortunately, upon checking those, we started to doubt the validity of this article. According to the article, Frank Mail and John Frew went missing, presumably kidnapped, killed, and later on burned by Donald Jordanson. Although on their death records, not only their death dates are 4 days apart, Frank Mail died in Niagara Falls, while the quote-unquote longtime business partner John Frew, who was only 23 years old at the time, died at the General and Marine Hospital, and not in the Screaming Tunnel. Additionally, the article mentions a big storm in August of 1924, which destroyed all of Donald's crops, making him lose everything, and triggering his breakdown. If you check the Environment and Climate Change of Canada for that same period of time, the storm occurred on August 24th and 31st, which is after the recorded deaths of the alleged victims John Frew and Frank Mail, who died on the 17th and the 21st of August, respectively. On top of that, if you check the most recently available census of Canada prior to 1924, which is the one done in 1921, the only Jordansons that were in Canada lived in Manitoba, which is 2,000 kilometers away from the Screaming Tunnel, with no mentions of any Donald Jordanson. With the article's validity in question, we did a bit more research and were able to find the real truth behind the Screaming Tunnel, which was backed up by a few sources. Going back to the beginning of the video, we mentioned how one of the stories behind the Screaming Tunnel talks about a distraught couple with an alcoholic father, an abused wife, and their daughter, and how one night the father burned his daughter alive in the tunnel. This story is probably the closest one to the truth, as there was indeed a distraught couple living amongst the community of farmers beside the tunnel. It is unknown whether or not they had any kids, but there was no killing involved in the story. The husband was known to be a very difficult person, who liked to drink a lot and often fought with his wife. The wife, widely disliked by the neighbors, was known to be a little unhinged. After each fight, she would go to the tunnel to seek refuge and solace, where she would scream at the top of her lungs. It is believed that so terrible was her sorrow that she wanted everyone to hear her and feel her suffering. Thus, after a while, the tunnel was given a nickname, the Screaming Tunnel. And so, our investigation has been concluded. With many hours spent researching, we believe that we have finally found the true origin of the legend of the Screaming Tunnel. Every theory mentioned in the beginning of the video had some piece of truth behind it. From a burning farmhouse, a distraught couple, and screams in the tunnel, we were able to determine what was true and what was not. To this day, the tunnel remains a popular attraction to any and all thrill seekers. So, is the Screaming Tunnel really haunted? We'll leave it up to you to decide.